In this video, I will be reballing an Xbox 360 GPU from an Xbox 360 Elite console. This is a console that I have previously worked on unsuccessfully, and thus far I have already removed the chip and cleaned the site on the motherboard. I have with me a replacement GPU chip which I will be soldering back onto the motherboard after I clean it and apply lead solder balls to it. The first thing I'm going to do is fasten the motherboard to the ACHI PCB support. I'm going to set the motherboard aside until it is ready to be reballed. I am now going to apply some Kingbo RMA 218 flux. Now that the flux is applied, I'm going to clean the pads using some Goot wick or some imitation of Goot wick soldering braid. This braid is smoother than the other braid I had been using and should be less abrasive to the chip surface. It is always a good idea to also apply some flux to the braid as well. of the pads appear to be perfectly cleaned off of the chip. I will now wipe away the used flux with 91% isopropyl alcohol. Additional inspection with the magnifying glass. The chip is now ready for reballing. I am now going to apply a thin layer of Kingbo flux to the chip. There is a bit of a sweet spot when it comes to knowing exactly how much flux to apply. It is important not to apply too much flux, or many of the balls will bridge together when they are heated. Additionally, you do not want to apply too little flux, otherwise the balls may not stick to the pads at all. A rule of thumb I have found online is to apply about a rice grain size of flux on the chip. Some of the flux has stuck to the underside of my stencil. This can be either because I put too much, or because the stencil is not sitting high enough above the chip. Sometimes warped chips do not actually sit evenly on the stencil, thus requiring some adjustments. Now that I know flux isn't going to stick to the underside of my stencil, I am now ready to pour in the balls. That was almost perfect. There was one ball which got stuck to the stencil, which I will be reattaching now. Excellent. The chip is now ready to be reattached to the motherboard. I now have the board on the ACHI BGA machine. The first thing I'm going to do before running the temperature profile is apply a layer of flux on the BGA site. The flux has been applied to the BGA site. I have taken extra care to make sure that the flux has covered all of the pads all the way out to all four corners of the site. I'm now going to affix the thermocouples to the board. The thermocouples are now affixed to both corners of the BGA site. I am now going to place the The chip is now aligned on the BGA site. It is very important that the thermocouples do not move during the reflow process. I will be making some minor adjustments to the profile during this run. workflow has been completed. We will be ready to test momentarily. Okay, I now have the board off of the machine, and all I have to do before testing it is apply some thermal paste and connect up the RF board. I have only applied a small amount of thermal paste onto the chip dies. This should be enough to test the GPU. I'm now going to apply the heat sinks and connect all the peripherals. I have everything hooked up, and I am now ready to test the console. Looks like we had a successful reball.